Welcome to another episode of Uncommon Entrepreneurs Lunch and Learns. I'm your host, Drew Cutcomb, and today we have an amazing guest you're going to love and learn a lot from, named Phil Jalovec. And how you doing today, Phil?
Awesome. How about yourself, Drew?
Doing good. Excellent. We go back about a year ago through mutual friends. We had met up while I was down in Medellín, and definitely connected right away. We're on the same wavelength as it comes to neuro-linguistic programming and the significance of your communication patterns and how that plays a factor. And so we'll be getting into that today. For those that are checking this out for the first time, Uncommon Entrepreneurs, we're based out of sunny Puerto Rico. I'm here in beautiful Maya Wez at the moment filming. And this is a social experiment. This is an opportunity to get together as a community on the island and connect with those off the island to spread positive ideas, spread solutions. We're in the middle of, a lot of uncertainty and unrest with what's happening with COVID, et cetera. And so this is an opportunity to decompress, to learn new skills from those that are curated, et cetera. And today you're definitely tuning in at the right time. So we're going to go over a couple different themes today: neuro-linguistic programming communication models, and how to strengthen your inner world, which would lead to your outer world changing. So Phil's going to be getting in both those topics. Just a little bit of background on Phil Jalovec. He's a top-rated relationship coach. He's from the United States and lives in Medellín, Colombia at the moment. His clients have included CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, medical doctors, other coaches, soccer moms, and everything in between. Phil believes that relationships with yourself is one of the most important things to living at the peak of success. He believes that going deep in oneself is necessary for transformation. He noticed that when people solve what's going on in their relationships and their personal lives, that their businesses almost always improve. He's been coaching for over 8 years successfully, and he also runs plant-based ayahuasca retreats in Colombia. Welcome to the show, Phil.
Thank you. Thank you.
So kind of jumping into it, relationships, those are so critical. Yourself and those around you. A lot of people right now are hurting. They might not be telling those around them. People might not even realize, right, what you're going through because you're by yourself and you're isolated, and we get it. And it's a mental game at this point, which is what we're going to be kind of getting into, Phil. So let's start us off with some tips, some how perspectives on how people can be dealing with this during this time.
Absolutely. I think one of the big things is, like you said, people aren't always saying, like, I feel horrible, or, oh my God, like when you ask someone how are they doing, they're like, oh, not bad, or I'm good. They generally don't say, like, life feels like it's crumbling down. So I think with those people who are closest to us, it's family, it's friends, it's business associates, to anticipate what's going on with them, to notice, like, okay, he just lost his job, or they just broke up, how are they going to respond, to be there to support people. And really to realize, no matter what our situation is everywhere in the world, in some weird way, we're all united right now through the last, depending on what part of the world, 8-10 weeks of, separation, lockdown, quarantine. And, to realize that we're all doing the best with what we have. So a constant reminder for me is to be kind and compassionate, because it can be like, oh, why is this going this way? It's like, well, a lot of us are a little more stressed or feeling a bit more uncertain with the times, and more on that later, which is be more understanding, passionate, and anticipating our needs and not making so many assumptions. I know it's humans can be easy to make assumptions.
That's good. Okay, for sure. And I think that kind of leads into your NLP communication model that we can kind of walk people through to, give people some perspective on, the power of your communication with those that are around you and yourself, and your pattern with your words plays such a significant factor. So maybe let's explain what the NLP what is NLP to start with?
So what is NLP? NLP is neuro-linguistic programming that was developed by two guys in the late 70s. And I think, to me, when I first got into it, it has a million different definitions, but a lot of them are kind of esoteric and confusing. To me, NLP is simple. It's a way to make more sense of yourself and your own psychology and other people. And what that really means is you better understand yourself, and others have a better life and better life. That's the simplest definition I've heard and I like to use. But yeah, it's a better way to enhance life, to have better results, to understand ourselves and others better. The communication model, kind of an intellectual, like, what the heck does that mean? Basically, the communication model is a breakdown of how information comes into us and how we interpret that information. Actually, I'll stand up to show it on the whiteboard to make it even better.
break it down. Break it down. Let's go through that.
With the communication model, we're going to draw John here. So this would be you, for those of you who are watching live or watching the recording. But the NLP communication model is really how we make sense and how we process information. Because we're always having things coming at us, right? We're having events from our outside world. They're coming in to our inner world. So something happens, okay, the economy shifted, okay, this happened with the relationship, okay, the president said this, okay, COVID. So those are external events we're processing. There are nervous system, auditory, kinesthetic.
Having a quick technical difficulty. We'll be right back with you guys. So just stay tuned. We're figuring it out.
Hopefully we solve the technical difficulty. We'll have to let you know. I'm not sure how to change that. I don't know how that happened.
Yeah, so he's leaving the call and he's going to be jumping back on in a second, working with a little technical difficulty. I appreciate those that are tuning in and their patience. We are back. Phil, we don't hear you. Phil, we don't hear you. Can you hear us?
How's that? Good? Ready to rock and roll?
We're good. Let's get back into it. So he's going over the neuro-linguistic programming communication model. And so maybe let's just start at the beginning. Let's go through it.
So I had a little technical difficulty, but it fits in perfect with the content. So NLP communication model is really understanding, how do we organize, how do we compartmentalize stuff that comes into our experience? How do we process information that's coming into our mind? So we have, this is our mind, this is our head, this is John. And here we have events which are coming in to our experience, our life, through our nervous system, through our five senses, right? Visual, auditory, kinesthetic, olfactory, and gustatory. So it comes into our experience and it creates our internal representation, or for short, IR. So why would this be useful for you today? Is having a different understanding of how you can process information. That sounds kind of intellectual, but having a different understanding also really giving more options and more choices of what things could mean or what life could be. So with that being said, information comes in our outside world, but if you think about it, we have so much stimulus, right? We have, which you might have not thought about it, but especially if you're in Puerto Rico and you're inside, your air conditioning is running. But you didn't think of it or hear that sound until you just use language to direct your focus. So there's all this information coming in, right? And it's coming in chunks of 2 to 4 million bits per second. So that's a lot. So if that was, imagine if I gave you 4 million toothpicks. It would just be like a shower of toothpicks in your living room. Would be a mess, right? So that could be a little overwhelming to say the least, but it comes in our conscious mind, breaks it down at 134. This is according to the NLP, bits per second. And then take that for you diehard analysts out there in chunks of 7 plus or minus 2. So think about that in terms of like a phone number. If the phone number was 26 digits, probably be pretty hard to remember, but it's 7 with an area code, so it's a bit easier to get information coming into our nervous system, into our neurology, through our 5 senses, and it creates an internal representation. Said differently, it creates a meaning. And we'll keep coming back to internal representation of thinking in any moment in life, what does this mean? What does COVID mean? What does it mean to get a divorce? What does it mean to get married? Why I really want to focus on this part of what does it mean is how many times do you hear someone that they get married and that's good, right? Or that's how we're taught. Marriage is good, divorce is what? A lot of people would say bad. I don't know about you guys, but I know a lot of divorced people that feels pretty good after getting a divorce. And I know a lot of married people that after a year they go, I don't know if I thought through this terribly well. And why I'm using those examples is because oftentimes society hijacks what things mean. Think about it, many of you are entrepreneurs. When you posted a new job a few years ago on Facebook, maybe you got 500 likes or a couple hundred likes. When you post your entrepreneurial journey starting out, you get your 6 entrepreneur friends that like. So it's a different meaning, but also when you're crushing it and hitting your goals, and now you're inspiring people, all these people notice you. It's a different sense of what things mean. An entrepreneurship journey for some people might mean risk, uncertainty. Our families want to see us safe, where a career could be safe, or so that's what we're told on the surface. So events come into our nervous system through our 5 senses, and we probably go crazy at all these different things. So how do we organize or how do we sort information? What we do is we use 3 things. Our mind deletes, distorts, and generalizes. Like I just mentioned, you may have not noticed the sound of your air conditioning until I brought attention to it. Through language, so you're no longer deleting. You don't really need the information, so the unconscious mind filters out, or the feeling in your left big toe. But now you're thinking about it based on language. So you were deleting the air conditioning sound, you were deleting the sensation in your left big toe. You might have been even deleting the sensation in your right big toe, but now, because of language, your focus has been directed differently. You could distort something and go, oh, well, Mom, you say that I'm the best and I'm cute because all parents have to do. Go through a distortion. You can't be looked at differently. So it's a different way of compartmentalizing it or making sense of information. Or a generalization, well, all entrepreneurs are, all men are, all women communicate, all men communicate this way. And why? I think inherently we need this. Just because life can feel kind of complex and to make sense of our world, and we're doing the majority of this unconscious, some of it can be conscious as well. So information or events come into our nervous system, what creates an internal representation, or said differently, it's a way we represent the world internally to us. And what's interesting is, haven't you had a time where an event happens and you hear someone else explain it, you're like, that's not at all what happened, but you were both there. So when it came into someone else's experience of life, they interpreted it one way, you interpreted it totally different, even though you're both standing next to each other. So there's other things that play a factor into that. Filters in our mind, our values, our beliefs, our past references, our identity. So there's different kind of ways we filter out information that comes into our experience. So for those of you out there thinking about it, it comes in, something means something. You know, is that and then also,
You're breaking up a little bit, Phil. Can you speak to the camera? Thank you.
yep. And if someone says divorce is bad, for instance, and that's your meaning you assign to that, how's that going to affect your state? How's that going to affect your emotions? How's that going to affect your energy? And also, if you're thinking, I'm getting divorced, that's bad, how's it going to affect your body, your physiology? Are you going to be standing the same? In a lot of different NLP worlds, this is kind of drawn as a little, like, all connected to our physiology, our state, and our internal representation. But like I said, if there's only one thing you get from today, it would be our internal representation. It's based on what we decide things mean. It's really our experience of life. I'll show you here in a moment. So, well, any information comes in, we create a meaning that affects our state, our physiology, and then based on a meaning, what happens? What gets externalized? We then have certain behaviors. We take certain actions. And ultimately, and as entrepreneurs out there, we ultimately look at, you get certain results. So let's run through this as an example. So let's take an example as a relationship coach. This applies to your business, applies to, and that's the type of relationship to your business. Someone gets a divorce. Their internal representation is, you know what, I'm never going to find the relationship I want. This is bad. I knew it wasn't going to work out. All women are the same. All men are the same. How's that going to, their emotions going to feel? How's that going to affect them? And if your belief about relationships is all men are the same, all women are the same, this is never going to work out, how are you going to behave? What type of actions are you going to take? And ultimately, what's it going to equal in your life? Or said differently, what are your results going to be? But let's take the exact same example and let's just switch it. Someone realizes, you know what, this relationship didn't work out and I need to honor myself and I need to honor my partner, soon to be former partner. And I had a friend conversation this week with a friend who said, I have to leave. I can't be in the relationship anymore and it's unfair for me to steal and take his time. So I know I'm going to transform and grow and my life's going to be so different and I'm going to welcome a partner that I really deserve and desire. So that's her meaning. She has that optimism. She knows there's a future. She knows she's serving the other person. She knows she's learned so much. How's that going to affect how she feels? And ultimately, if she has that different understanding, that behavior, what kind of actions is she going to take and what kind of results? So if you were to get one thing, and especially during COVID this time from today's thing, in any moment we decide when something is. A relationship can end, and it can feel like the end, or it can feel like the beginning of something. So in any moment, we are decoding what things mean, and the caution, especially now in how uncertain things can feel for people. Are you going to let society or other people, are they going to dictate what you feel? As this is good, this is bad, based on kind of the constructs, the seduction of society. So how can we really use this? And the way we can use this, and Jim Rohn has that old quote, stand guard to the door of our mind. So at any moment, if we're letting something in, which we are we seeing this is the beginning, or are we seeing this as the end? I got a puppy a few weeks ago. For the first week or so, on my couch is eaten, there's pee everywhere in my apartment. You know, sometimes I was letting my internal representation kind of go a different direction, but seeing the opportunity, seeing the love I have with the dog. And right now during COVID, there's words like quarantine, like lockdown. Is this feeling like the end where people are talking about there's no freedom? Are those things really true? I would say they're not. Or, is this a time to unify, to go together, for people to connect, to help each other, to have a unique perspective where we're all connected and unified all over the world? And last thing is to wrap up that, I leave you with is, in any moment, we're the architect of our life. So we get to decide what things, to be very cautious. Who could you be giving that power to? Because if you give it to someone else, we're living our life and be effective rather than be a cause. That is the Nop Communication Model. And it was a big shift in my life to go, wow, I actually have control. I didn't really know when I first heard this 8 years ago. It's like, I actually can decide what things mean. It's not just, this is good, this is bad. Almost like, think of a ship going through, deciding your meaning is like having a ship, with a clear GPS and a rudder. And if you don't decide what things mean or how life feels, It's kind of like having a ship that just gets tossed around by the ocean by external events. And to wrap that part up of, do you want to have direction in your life or be the captain of your life, or would you just kind of have the ocean toss? So, yeah, hope that
That's good.
helpful. I know it's something Drew will share.
Yeah, that was very helpful. And for those that are watching, like, subscribe, give us comments, ask questions. Phil has got a wealth of knowledge. If you want additional questions, we'll be looking at that. And, so yeah, I mean, kind of, you've hit on a lot of pieces. And I think where we connected was, I've also become master practitioner certified in neurolinguistic programming. And what you're saying is so true, that you can be like a ship without a rudder, or you can, have more control because you understand kind of the narrative that's around you. And that kind of like leads into the next part we're going to talk about, which is kind of working on your inner world, which you've somewhat highlighted, and how that reflects on kind of your outside world. So maybe start, like, how does a person do that, Phil?
How does, say that again? How does a person what?
So regarding your inner world, strengthening that.
Yeah, right now, another thing, let me clear off my whiteboard here. So right now, things feel for a lot of people. If you ask most people, and what I'm finding is kind of, common sense, a lot of people are feeling, would you say, more certain or more uncertain in their lives?
Right now, I'd say uncertain is the feedback I'm getting. You're right.
Yeah. And it makes sense, things, if someone even wants to go, hey, I want to, I live in the US and I want to plan a vacation this summer, I think, people are hesitating or even afraid, going, are we going to be able to go out this summer? Or is this state going to be open in a month? Or things feel a bit uncertain. And what I wanted to show is how to have strength and how to have a different sense of certainty. And what I found in my years of doing this, almost all people that do human behavior or talk about our basic fundamental needs, I like to look for core patterns. So I've noticed they can agree on always almost two core human needs, psychological needs, fundamental needs, whatever the psychologist or whoever you learned it from describes it. And on one hand, it's a sense of security, certainty. And on the other hand, it is a need for love and connection. So what does this really mean right now? For those of you who are watching, or if you have a pen and paper, or your iPhone, or your tablet at home, go ahead and grab it now and do a little quick interactive exercise. So when you think of your sense of security or certainty, that's a human need we all have. In fact, it's our survival need. So right now, with what's going on, or how you've been living your life, how are you meeting that? Like, for example, as anyone who's watching this, or if you're watching this on the recording, you can pause it, write down, and jump back in with us. Someone could say, okay, I'm meeting my sense of security through my relationship. Get a sense of security from my work, from the economy, from my kids, or let's say what the stock market is doing, and from, let's say, my morning.
Phil, I'm not hearing you.
Any better?
Better.
Okay. So I'll do this. I'll adjust a little bit and come closer. So imagine our sense of security or certainty, and I'm just writing out a couple common ones that people come up with. My relationship gives me a sense of security. My work, the economy, my kids, my money, the stock market, or my morning ritual, what I do in the morning. So when I go through and I do this exercise with people, we all have this fundamental need. But what I've found, Drew, is that, for example, if we take these first 5, how much control do you really have in a relationship? You have influence, right? But you have control. how much do you have in your work? Probably a lot more if you run a business, but if you're an employee, do you really have that much certainty? Because you could get, I talked to someone this week, like my boyfriend and I broke up and I'm about to lose my job. Feels pretty uncertain. The economy, how much certainty, how much control do we have over the economy right now? Or at any time, our kids. I mean, you can control your kids to a bit, or we think we can, or if you have a pet even, you can kind of try to have rules or train them, but these are uncertain things for your money. You have control over your money, but you could have your money in the stock market, things change, your money changes. So I'll take the first chunk here, that these things are kind of a bit, quite honestly, at the effect. Things can change in your relationship, things can change in the stock market, the president can say something, your kids can get in trouble in school. So those are your core things of your sense of security and certainty, and they change, life feels uncertain. We'll highlight this one here, just as an example, morning ritual. So use that as an example, having a morning ritual, and there's many examples, it's something you can control. You can decide what time to get up. You can decide, okay, you know what, I'm going to do this thing where I meditate for 15 minutes and I do this breathing exercise, or I write what I'm grateful for, or this or that. So what I find is a lot of people cling to this need for certainty, especially now, and it's understandable. So this is my question. Why not, if this is really important to humans as it is, let's find things we can actually be certain about to get our sense of certainty. Now, if that makes sense, using my friend as an example, because something can happen, you can lose your job and your relationship can end in a week. Now, that could be hard for anyone. But when those are your, almost like, imagine a stool with 4 legs. If those are 2 of the pillars of your life, and they get taken away, it kind of can feel like things can fall apart. So, Drew, when I usually do this with clients, I would say that when they make this list, 70 to 100% finding that sense of security externally. So when their outside world changes, their inner world changes. So again, it feels like they're getting tossed around the ocean. But
got it.
Let's think about it for a moment. For those of you who are watching this recording, can pause it. What are the things that give you that sense of certainty that you control? What if it's your thoughts? You can control what you eat, what time you get up, what you focus on. Like we just talked about in the communication model, deciding what things mean. So there's all these other different things. And why I wanted to put both of these needs on there is because another thing that you're seeing right now is, imagine you only have 2 human needs, but the truth is you have more. If your sense of security is first and love is second, you won't really open completely or feel vulnerable because if things feel unsafe. Where to ask people right now, it's a common question, are you leading your life with love, or are you leading your life with security? Which oftentimes security, if it's driving your life, it's oftentimes fear. And again, it's a huge survival need that we all have. But if someone's kind of going, I need this, I need to control everything, I need to be secure, I need to be safe. So the focus was on our need certainty, but also to look at with those 2 fundamental needs, what are we valuing more right now? Are we valuing the certainty, the security, or sometimes it feels like the scarcity of the moment, or are we leading with love?
That's powerful. Leading with love is really what it comes down to, and you're hitting on these important themes. That's interesting, and you're right. Certainty and comfort and security and is what a lot of people go to, and so that's very fascinating, interesting. So how does, maybe get into kind of like ways that you can leave somebody with a tip or 2 on how they can get more aligned with the change their priorities.
Yeah. Well, one first thing, and it's funny, and probably a lot of entrepreneurs probably tuning into this podcast and yourself are familiar with guys like Tim Ferriss. Tim wrote a book called Tools of Titans, 4 years ago? And to use this as a metaphor, but it's literal too. He went and he got all these kind of like fundamental habits of what people are doing. He wrote a couple pages on each one. Virtually every single person had some type of morning meditation ritual. And I remember Tim affectionately, I hope I'm probably screw this up a little, but he said something funny. He goes, even the guys who said, no, I don't meditate. I just do this thing where I close my eyes and I focus on what I'm grateful for. And I focus on my breathing. And I imagine, you know, my future and everything already handled. And he's like, all right, whatever you want to call it. If that's not a meditation ritual, whatever it's a closed eye breathing gratitude thing. But for me, Drew, the number one thing I would say, or what's helped me and help clients and friends, is to have something you do consistently in the morning. Because it, you know, Zig Ziglar has that old quote, I believe it's the first hour of your day is like using the metaphor, like the rudder, the direction of your day. So that, and it's a sense of love. It's going, okay, I'm getting up an hour, giving this hour to myself to feel, really, quite honestly, to connect and to love myself. And it sets another thing, Drew, I would say a sense of security or certainty, having conversations that you might not want to have. I'm seeing a lot of people running into issues, and I'm like, well, have you told your partner this? Have you told your kids this? Have you told your business partner? No, we haven't talked about it. And a lot of times, all this fear is what's going on, and they have the conversation. And even if nothing's resolved in the conversation, the fact that they were heard and understood, oftentimes they realize the other person had a totally different understanding. So they feel more supported, more safe, more secure. Now, granted, that's something external, but it's utilizing our power of, you know, of how we're going to use that and sense of control. But to recap a couple things, you know, our emotions. So, you know, what are we feeling? What are we thinking? Are we saying what else could go wrong? And your brain's going to go, yeah, murder hornets, or there'll be a seagull that's hybrid with a shark and it eats people. And your brain can make up thing, or you could, you know, choose your power of thinking and focus to go, what could I be grateful for right now? So another huge thing to direct our focus and to have a different sense of inner strength and inner certainty to be the questions we ask ourselves.
That's powerful. Appreciate the recap, and it's been a great session and all that. Any kind of, you know, parting thoughts or other with clients that you're kind of feeling at the moment?
There's so many different things. One thing that I've been talking with people is just, how are you investing your time in your life right now? You know, there can be the common thing to have a drink, to go watch Netflix for 6 hours, to go binge on buying too much stuff on Amazon, and none of those things are wrong, but generally they don't lead us to fulfillment. So how are we spending, how are we investing the time we have? Are we investing, you know, sitting next to our partner for 6 hours watching Netflix versus maybe watching a movie and connecting with them, or really letting them know how important they are? Mentor of mine, Steve, he says nothing, you know, with close relationships, nothing by having being open. Yeah, how I've seen people doing is a lot more people invest in their health too. Because if they invest in their health, and stronger, they're healthier, they feel better, invest in personal development, they're going to thrive during these times. And a metaphor shared right now around the world, I think life is kind of fiery. And what I mean by that, and you can use businesses, you can use relationships. What does fire do? Fire can take something and by that pressure, by that heat, make your relationship. Or it can cause you to burn away. So like heat is causing the relationship or the business to dissolve, or we need to learn we have to do something differently.
Yeah, I think you're right. Investing in personal growth and, you know, taking time away from entertainment like Netflix and really, you know, thinking about yourself. This is a really good opportunity with everybody having to be home to really self-reflect on those that are around you, those, you know, what you're doing with your time, how you're spending, you know, your time. And so, yeah, you've hit on a lot of good points, Phil. So I think you've really given everybody that's watched this a perspective shift if you've been paying attention. So I appreciate that, Phil. How do people find you?
So on either Instagram or Facebook, and I'm the only one there, so it'll be easy. So it's Phil, Phil, and then my last name, kind of hard to say but easy to spell. It's Jalovec. So to make it simple, J-A, love, C. And how perfect for a relationship coach that I have love in the middle of my last name. But those are the two best avenues to reach me.
Amazing. Okay. Well, and then one other theme to kind of get into briefly, you lead people to plant-based medicines down in Medellín. I know that's kind of a big part of your coaching. Can you get into that briefly?
Yeah. So about 3 years ago, I heard ayahuasca. I heard about ayahuasca. That's the main one, probably for 8 years now. And long story short, I kind of heard mixed things about it. Got to Colombia, it was on my mind. Walked into some cafe and some guy walked up to me and my buddy. He said, "Hey man, I heard you talking about ayahuasca, Tony Robbins, Tim Ferriss, and racing motorcycles. Can I join your conversation?" I'm like, "Man, you're my new best friend. Of course you can join my conversation." Those are the 4 things that stuck out. So basically, long story short, without getting into details, this guy tells me, "Hey, I did this thing a month ago. I drank ayahuasca. It like totally changed my life." And then he goes on to show me all these things he's done. I'm going, wow, I thought I've done a lot. Like this guy is challenging me. So me being my kind of sporadic or healthily directed, impulsive personality, I go, "All right, when are you going?" "I'm going in 10 days. I'll go with you." And honestly, Drew, at that point, I've spent 10 years and $100,000 in personal development. Working with ayahuasca for 2 days, had bigger shifts that I couldn't even comprehend. And I was instantly a believer, so I started working with the medicine. I've done probably about 40 ayahuasca ceremonies now. And after doing it for a while, I said, I really wanted to host something. So I partnered with a facility. About 10 people come from the US. My mom was even one of them because she goes, "I've seen everything to this seminar to NLP to this guru, whatever." And it has the power to heal and someone's life and understand on a very, very different level that as someone who loves seminars and books and personal development, I haven't got the same results in person or a book or a seminar. It's almost like, I think the best way I've heard it described, it's like if you could sit down and drink a little cup of something, you're going to solve 5 or 10 years worth of emotion in like a few hour therapy session, ayahuasca. And it's just absolutely life changing. Why I like it, it's my one change work tool for helping the relationship with others and also with yourself. There's a lot of tools, but having couples come and do it. We work with another medicine called Combo, which is like a detox process beforehand. But ayahuasca is the main one. Next year we'll be adding Bufo, but we've postponed our retreats at the moment. We're supposed to have a retreat next week, but that got canceled. Yeah, even if I don't have a retreat or I'm not the one in your area, check out ayahuasca and the 2 pieces of information. If you find a good, highly recommended, and you're with a good group of people, that's about 99% factors, but that's the majority. And yeah, no one is terribly excited about it. Probably the number one thing I get, people go, I don't like puking. And I'm like, I've never met anyone who does. People that make themselves puke don't like puking. So yes, there is that part of the drinking liquid. About an hour later you will puke, and that's the purge, detoxification of it, which is a special part of it.
Gotcha. Okay, sounds good. And from what I gather, it's 2 roots in the Amazon that kind of come together in like a stew-like fashion and facilitated with like a shaman.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a vine from the Amazon. So it comes from Colombia, Peru, Ecuador, and Brazil. Is where it's native. You see it in other parts of Europe, Costa Rica, other parts of America or Canada. But that's where it originally comes from. And depending on what region and where it's grown, that vine is then either mixed with a leaf or something else that's an MAOI inhibitor that allows your body to process it. But yeah, you would want a shaman. That's huge. I only work with Colombian shamans. To some people, they go to Peru for 2 weeks and then go back to the US and go, "I'm going to make the stuff in my living room. I'm a shaman." I can't express how unsafe that experience would be, because a person would be, "Hey, I went to this workshop in Peru about how to do open heart surgery. Can I cut you open?" Like it's something that is to be taken serious and sacred. But yeah, always if you have a highly recommended shaman, and then also if you're with good people. And also for me, like our retreats are only maximum 20 people. I've been to retreats where it's 80 people. It's a radically different experience. So also if you're looking for out there, I have friends that run them in Europe, August. Small group makes a difference than having people that, having a shaman that has, my shaman, he's been working with the medicine 35 years. So since he was a teenager. So people that
Nice. Yeah, I appreciate the breakdown. I personally went through a ceremony this past year, and it had a profound impact, as you're saying too, Phil. And it really helped to kind of ground myself and connect myself, and help me look back at actually some past relationships and girlfriends that I'd had, and I saw a similar pattern that I was able to remove myself from the situation and see how I could change going forward. And so yeah, it's interesting. I think everything on this theme that's been talked about during this this webinar right now has been, it's all about kind of renewing your mind and having your neural pathways open. And there's just so much science to kind of back it. And it's interesting that like they're coming out with studies saying that even with like PTSD, it can make a drastic impact, and it has many benefits.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. There's two organizations of people, because I know a lot of people go, I'm skeptical. What are you guys talking about? It's like people think it's like, it could be like doing drugs type of a thing, which it's not at all. And what I invite people to check out, there's an organization in California called MAPS. It's the multi-something disciplinary studies of basically psychedelics, and they're a nonprofit organization. They've been around for 35 years in California. And probably one of the biggest ones now is Johns Hopkins University on the East Coast. And it was last September, it was Tim Ferriss and a group of entrepreneurs donated $17 million to Johns Hopkins. It said he's actually stopped working with startups because he's seen such a radical change. And it's not just ayahuasca, but like you said, he thinks with PTSD, with psychotherapy, MDMA, psilocybin, LSD, these are done medically with a doctor, with a psychiatrist, or psychologist, are supervised, and the results are extraordinary. One of the unique things for why it shows a little bit of effect, the results are pretty sustainable. So it's not like, take a room of a bunch of Americans, for example, say how many people know depressants. If you say how many of you know people that take antidepressants are depressed, almost every single hand goes up. When you're seeing things like holistic medicines or things like ayahuasca, the last are really special. Like I said, Johns Hopkins, they're one of the most well-regarded medical in the world in the United States. So this is becoming not what people are talking about. This is the fact and the science growing.
That's amazing. Well, good. Well, I appreciate you coming on, Phil. This has been very enlightening for sure. And, those that have viewed, write comments, like the page, subscribe, share with a friend. We're going to be coming out with more interviews in the coming weeks to highlight those that are thinking outside the box and that are pivoting right now in their businesses. And so if that's you or you know somebody, obviously feel free to reach out and tune in and see you next week.
Thanks a lot. Really appreciate it.